Laws of nature. Since the dawn of civilization, man has been trying to figure out the purpose for which the universe has been created as well as his own purpose in life. This is a healthy discussion, and it is to the credit of man that he has evolved from the Stone Age to modern times with his efforts. The pessimists believe there is no purpose to life. God has created all this for his amusement. Man is destined to play his allotted role. When God has had his fill of the stage play, he will fold up the entire universe. End of game. There are others who do not believe in a God. The universe came about by some laws, argue. Man is trying his best to make something of it. He may or may not succeed in achieving his objective, if he has any. In course of time, men and universe will disappear as they came about. The optimists are of the view that the universe has been created with a purpose. Man has freedom of will and action, and by his hard work he has brought about a modicum of peace and plenty. He will continue his hard work until he achieves universal peace and plenty. The philosophers have not yet decided what will happen after that. Religion has contributed a theory that on a certain day, this world will be destroyed. The dead will be resurrected. God will reward the good people with everlasting paradise, and the bad people will be made to live in hell forever. End of discussion. The Quran offers its own theory in this regard. It does not quote quantum physics or higher mathematical equations to support its argument. But, it encourages human beings to do so and deliberate about various phenomena in the universe. The Quran claims that after long thinking, with trial and error, human beings will come round of the same theory as is offered by the Quran. The theory generally supports the optimist view. It states that there was definite purpose for the creation of the universe.
وخلق الله السماوات والأرض بالحق ولتجزى كل نفس بما كسبت وهم لا يظلمون.
God has created this universe with a definite and creative purpose, and the purpose is that forces of nature would ensure that every human being's actions would bring about appropriate results. No effort will go wasted. 45:22.
إليه مرجعكم جميعا وعد الله حقا إنه يبدأ الخلق ثم يعيده ليجزي الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات بالقسط والذين كفروا لهم شراب من حميم وعذاب أليم بما كانوا يكفرين.
All your actions will create results according to God's laws. Never ever will there be a deviation from this rule. God has initiated the creation of this universe and then has been completing it through various phases with the sole purpose that actions of believing people who do good result in good in full measure, without doing the slightest injustice to the work done. On the other hand, the actions of those people who do not believe in God's laws and do not work in conformity with them result in destruction and pain. 10:4. So much, in brief, for the purpose for which the universe was created. Now, how about human beings? What is the object of life?
وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون.
We have created civilized and uncivilized people, jinwalans, only for one purpose, and that is that they should of their own accord act in accordance with God's laws in all spheres of life. 51:56. Man has been given freedom of action. It is entirely his own discretion whether he believes in God's laws or not, and it is also entirely up to him whether he acts in conformity with those laws or not. His aim in life should be to willingly obey God's laws and act accordingly. This will result in a stable, peaceful, and prosperous universe, an aim worth struggling for. According to the Quran, it is potentially possible for human beings to achieve such an objective.
ولقد كرمنا بني آدم وحملناهم في البر والبحر ورزقناهم من الطيبات وفضلناهم على كثير ممن خلقنا تفضيلا.
We have given human beings the potential to achieve great dignity amongst the forces of nature. He has the capacity to conquer the land and the seas and can acquire means of sustenance for himself and all others in the universe. So, with his actions, he can prove himself to be superior to most other creation in the world. 1770. It stands out that it would help humanity if they could know all the laws of nature so that man could fulfill his aim in life by following them. It would also be important to know how those laws work and what would indicate whether man was in fact following the laws of nature. Such indicators would help set a man on the right path whenever results produced by deviation from it would warn that there is danger ahead. This is the aim of this chapter. Value systems recommended for adoption in individual and collective lives have already been enumerated in previous chapters. The aim here is to describe the nature of those value systems and under what rules they operate. The Quran clearly recommends that there should be only one comprehensive value system, and that should be adopted in full. There should be no mixing up of value systems to obtain full results. The value system recommended by the Quran is Islam, as has been discussed before.
ومن يبتغي غير الإسلام دينا فلن يقبل منه وهو في الآخرة من الخاسرين.
And whosoever seeks an ideology other than Islam will not serve him fully. In the final analysis, he will be a loser. 385. Such an ideology must not be forced on human beings. They will work according to it with their hearts and soul only if they are persuaded into it.
قد جاءكم بصائر من ربكم فمن أبصر فلنفسه ومن عمي فعليها وما أنا عليكم بحفيظ.
A one clear ideology with its rationale has come to you from your Lord. So, whoever is convinced of its usefulness, it will be good for him. And, whoever does not see any logic in it, he is free to reject it. The consequences will not be good. It must be clear that if you do not accept divine laws, you cannot ask him for protection under the law. 6104. God has spoken his last word. The ideology given by him has been completely stated. There will be no additions or subtractions. This is a complete package. It is up to you to accept or reject the package. If you introduce other people's ideologies in it, you will not be guaranteed full results.
وتمت كلمة ربك صدقا وعدلا لا مبدل لكلماته وهو السميع العليم وإن تطع أكثر من في الأرض يضلوك عن سبيل الله إن يتبعون إلا الظن وإن هم إلا يخرصون.
And the word of your Lord has been completed, truly and justly. There is none who can change his word. And, if you obey ideologies given by most other people, other than God, they will only lead you astray. 115-116. Following divine ideology is no bed of roses. There will be hardships on the way. To obtain full value from this package, you have to stick to it whatever the difficulties.
إن الذين قالوا ربنا الله ثم استقاموا تتنزل عليهم الملائكة ألا تخافوا ولا تحزنوا وأبشروا بالجنة التي كنتم توعدون.
Those who accept God's ideology and then remain steadfast in following it through, the forces of nature work in partnership with them and keep telling them not to fear nor be grieved or anxious. They are assured of a peaceful and prosperous future, a guaranteed result of this steadfastness. 4130. People who follow the laws of God steadfastly will continue to make progress towards a peaceful and prosperous life. That you will certainly ascend to one state after another. 8519.
وأشرقت الأرض بنور ربها ووضع الكتاب وجيء بالنبيين والشهداء وقضي بينهم بالحق وهم لا يظلمون.
Until, universe brightens up from one end to the other with the light of the Lord and his writ will be large everywhere. 3969. Whereas, human beings are free to adopt any course of action, they have no choice in determining the consequences of their actions. The laws governing the logical consequences of all deeds, good or bad, are very strict and very clear. They are laid out in great detail in the Quran, and it is good for the growth and nourishment of humanity that such laws governing accountability are clearly stated and are not allowed to be violated by anybody, howsoever powerful. God starts with himself.
قل لمن ما في السماوات والأرض قل لله كتب على نفسه الرحمة ليجمعنكم إلى يوم القيامة لا ريب فيه الذين خسروا أنفسهم فهم لا يؤمنون.
Tell them that it is God's laws which operate in the universe. He has made it incumbent upon himself that he will continue to nourish humanity, whatever the provocation or temptation. To achieve this, arrangements for accountability have been made, and nobody, including God himself, will be allowed to disturb those arrangements. This is in the interest of growth of humanity. Those of you who do not believe this will only harm themselves. 612. The cardinal principle is that no action, however inconsequential it may look, will go unrewarded.
فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة خيرا يره ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة شرا يره.
So, he who does an atom's weight of good will see its consequences. And, he who does an atom's weight of evil will see its consequences. 99:7-8. A man's good and evil deeds are being evaluated constantly. Sometimes he commits grave offenses, at others he acts in a very noble manner, and occasionally he makes minor errors of judgment. In balance of things, many highly noble deeds will do away with the harms of some bad deeds.
إن الحسنات يذهبن السيئات.
Surely, good deeds take away some effect of evil deeds. 11:114. And if one avoids grave offenses, the effect of minor lapses is considerably decreased.
إن تجتنبوا كبائر ما تنهون عنه نكفر عنكم سيئاتكم وندخلكم مدخلا كريما.
And if you shun grave offenses which you are forbidden, we shall considerably decrease or even do away with the effect of minor lapses and cause you to enter an honorable place of entering. 431. In determining rewards and punishments, Allah does complete justice.
إن الله لا يظلم مثقال ذرة وإن تك حسنة يضاعفها ويؤتي من لدنه أجرا عظيما.
Surely, Allah wrongs not the weight of an atom, and if it is good deed, He multiplies it and gives from Himself a great reward. 440. To persuade humanity to do good deeds, God gives them an incentive.
من جاء بالحسنة فله عشر أمثالها ومن جاء بالسيئة فلا يجزى إلا مثلها وهم لا يظلمون.
Whoever brings a good deed will have tenfold like it, and whoever brings out an evil deed will be recompensated only with the like of it, and they shall not be wronged. 6-160. Each individual is responsible and accountable for his own acts of omission or commission. He cannot get away from the consequences of his actions.
وكل إنسان إلزمناه طائره في عنقه ونخرج له يوم القيامة كتابا يلقاه منشورا اقرأ كتابك كفى بنفسك اليوم عليك حسيبا من اهتدى فإنما يهتدي لنفسه.
And we have made every man's actions to sling his neck. And we shall bring forth to him at the time of accountability a book that he will find wide open. Read these books, he will be told. You are the best witness against yourself. Whoever treads the right path, it was for his own good. Whoever strayed on the wrong path, he will bear the consequences. The law is that no bearer of a burden will bear the burden of another. 17-13-15. An individual may escape the law made by humans or bribe it to avoid punishment for his bad deeds. But each bad deed will so affect his personality that he will become a lesser man on the commitment of an offense, even though he may save his body by unjust means. However, God will judge him with complete justice.
ونضع الموازين القسط ليوم القيامة فلا تظلم نفس شيئا وإن كان مثقال حبة من خردل أتينا بها وكفى بنا حاسبين.
And we will set up a just balance at the time of accountability so that no one will be wronged in thee, and if there be the weight of a grain of mustard seed, we will bring it out. 21:47. He will only be held responsible for his own actions.
تلك أمة قد خلت لها ما كسبت ولكم ما كسبتم ولا تسألون عما كانوا يعملون.
Those are a people that have passed away, and for them is what they earned, and for you what you earn, and you will not be held accountable for what they did. 2141. Whereas nations are, no doubt, accountable for their collective acts of omission or commission, it does not absolve individuals from personal accountability.
ولقد جئتمونا فرادى كما خلقناكم أول مرة وتركتم ما خولناكم وراء ظهوركم وما نرى معكم شفعاءكم الذين زعمتم أنهم فيكم شركاء لقد تقطع بينكم وضل عنكم ما كنتم تزعمون.
On this day of accountability you have come to our jurisdiction entirely on your own as you were first created. You have left behind you what you owned. Your possessions will not help you if you are trying to escape the consequences of your actions with their support. We do not see with you your friends and colleagues whom you thought would intercede on your behalf. All your connections with whom you thought would keep you protected are broken. You are on your own. 694. Only such people will give evidence about your character who can be relied upon to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. Nobody can intercede on your behalf by stating lies.
واتقوا يوما لا تجزي نفس عن نفس شيئا ولا يقبل منها شفاعة ولا يؤخذ منها عدل ولا هم ينصرون.
And beware of the day of accountability when no person will be of any help to another person, neither will intercession be accepted on his behalf nor will compensation be taken from him nor will they be helped. 248. The Quran stresses the importance of accountability by going into details of history of nations to prove how compliance with laws of nature or rejection thereof has resulted in rise and fall of nations. I shall summarize it all by quoting extensively from chapter 20.
كذلك نقص عليك من أنباء ما قد سبق وقد آتيناك من لدنا ذكرا من أعرض عنه فإنه يحمل يوم القيامة وزرا خالدين فيه وساء لهم يوم القيامة حملا يوم ينفخ في الصور ونحشر المجرمين يومئذ زرقا يتخافتون بينهم إن لبثتم إلا عشرا نحن أعلم بما يقولون إذ يقول أمثلهم طريقة إن لبثتم إلا يوما ويسألونك عن الجبال فقل ينسفها ربي نسفا فيذرها قاعا صفصفا لا ترى فيها عوجا ولا أمتا يومئذ يتبعون الداعي لا عوج له وخشعت الأصوات للرحمن فلا تسمع إلا همسا يومئذ.
This way, we narrate for you some history of previous nations. This indicates to you the rationale of rise and fall of nations. Whoever rejects divine system bears the consequences of his rejection at the time of retribution. He remains in this sad state for as long as he continues to reject. And evil is the burden at the time of accountability. As for your opponents, the day is near when the trumpet of war will be sounded on account of their insistence on creating unrest. Then, the guilty will be gathered, blurred-eyed, blinded with fear. They will by whispering to each other that the life of plenty that they thought would last forever, lasted for only a few, 10 days. We know what they will be saying to each other on that day. In fact, the more knowledgeable among them will say that it lasted only a day or part of it. And, they ask you what will happen to these mighty, powerful people, stable-looking as mountains. Tell them, they will be scattered as dust, the inequities created by them will disappear. You will see they will no longer be crooked and all distinctions of high and low will disappear. From that time on, people will follow in the footsteps of revolutionaries in whom there is no crookedness. All the loud noises of opposition to laws of God will vanish. You will only hear the soft voice of footsteps, following new leaders. At that time, no intercession of any type will be accepted except absolutely true evidence, acceptable according to the laws of God. All this will happen because of what they have done in the past and how their evil deeds will catch up with them. At present, they refuse to comprehend all this. And, faces shall be humbled before the living, self-subsistent God, and he who bears iniquity is indeed undone. And, whoever does good works believing in divine value system has no fear of withholding or injustice due. 2099-112. In a similar view in another passage the Quran says,
المال والبنون زينة الحياة الدنيا والباقيات الصالحات خير عند ربك ثوابا وخير أملا ويوم نسير الجبال وترى الأرض بارزة وحشرناهم فلم نغادر منهم أحدا وعرضوا على ربك صفا لقد جئتمونا كما خلقناكم أول مرة بل زعمتم أن لن نجعل لكم موعدا ووضع الكتاب فترى المجرمين مشفقين مما فيه ويقولون يا ويلتنا ما لهذا الكتاب لا يغادر صغيرة ولا كبيرة إلا أحصاها ووجدوا ما عملوا حاضرا ولا يظلم ربك أحدا.
Wealth and children are an adornment in the short run. But, the ever-abiding good works, works undertaken for the good and nourishment of entire humanity rather than strictly selfish good, are better with your Lord in reward and better in hope. And, the day will soon come when the mighty and the powerful will be cut to size and lower category people will rise in their status so that all parts of the society are on an even keel. No one will be left behind another. At that time, will all people be in one rank according to the divine law of nourishment and nations will be restored to their original condition at the time of creation when there was no difference of high and low. The mighty thought it will never happen. They will see that it has. At that time, divine laws will be in force and everybody, without exception, will be made to respect those laws. The exploiters will cry out as to what sort of laws are these. They encompass all aspects of life, big and small, and are applicable to all, high and low. Everybody is immediately made to account for his actions and the results come out without loss of time. And, every case is decided on merit. 1846-49. A very large part of the Quran, maybe as much as full 1/3 of it, is devoted to the narration of how divine laws of accountability have been in force in the history of humankind and how they will continue to operate for all times to come. History of civilization, so far, proves this point. At various critical times in history, when evil seems to be prevailing, revolutionaries have changed the course of history in various places at various times. Successive superpowers have brought about justice, fair play, peace, and plenty at least as much as they could in their times. Civilization marches on. So far, times have changed for the better. Indications are that in spite of long periods of lapses, a larger segment of humanity will continue to get a better deal until utopia, hopefully. Since generations, an erroneous concept has grown among Muslims that accountability will take place on a particular day, the day of resurrection. Broadly, according to this theory, a man's acts of omission and commission are being recorded in this life and evaluation takes place in life after death when he is sent to heaven or hell according to his record. Mysticism, an institution alien to the Quran, stepped into this and taught that this world is not of much importance, that life here is only transitory in which a man is being constantly judged by being put through various tough situations to test him out, and that real and abiding life is only after death when real and abiding reward and punishment will be awarded. The adoption of this concept has led to a highly disastrous consequence. The Muslims started to disregard the value of life in this world. Any achievements here were termed as material and to be shunned in favor of so-called spiritual achievements which would demonstrate their results in life after death. This concept is a complete contradiction of the Quranic concept of mind accountability, and, therefore, a real understanding of the Quran becomes impossible when you approach it with this non-Quranic theory firmly fixed in your is truly Islamic. According to the Quran, Yawm is not a particular day or time but all days and times of accountability, and Qiyamah is not only in life after death but very much in this world as well, here and now. A man and nations are constantly being judged according to a divine value system, and many a nation and individual has had his Qiyamah. The history or rise and fall of nations, picturesquely described in the Quran, is a direct witness to this fact. For example, Prophet Muhammad worked hard for good of humanity. The Quraysh opposed him. Trumpets of war sounded. The Quraysh had their day of Qiyamah, they were stripped of power. Prophet Muhammad had his day of Qiyamah. His people were spared a life of misery, hunger, torture and slavery, and started to live a peaceful, free, prosperous and dignified life. These two types of lives are termed as Jahannam and Jannat in the Quran, and they are described in great detail, occasionally in symbolic terms and much of the time in clear, unambiguous language. Men and nations are told that they have to achieve these states of life as a result of their own hard work or lack of it. Men and nations who, by dint of their own effort and by strictly following divine value system, achieve as near a state of Jannat as they can, graduate into next stage of life after their physical death. The body withers off, but Momin's personality never dies. He lives on. That is life after death. The Quran does not describe the details of that life because we have a limitation. We can only conceive what we can perceive. But the man is ever curious. He wants to know details of what he will see in life after death. The Quran satisfies his curiosity by comparing the hereafter with some characteristic of our worldly Jannat, but, of course, Jannat of the hereafter will be much, much better.
مثل الجنة التي وعد المتقون تجري من تحتها الأنهار أكلها دائم وظلها تلك عقبى الذين اتقوا وعقبى الكافرين النار.
Jannat promised to good men can only be described by comparison with something that you see. It is like a garden with an ever-flowing supply of water. It gives fruit and provides shades in all seasons. 1335. Man is asked not to waste his time trying to figure out exactly what Jannat in afterlife will be like.
فلا تعلم نفس ما أخفي لهم من قرة أعين جزاء بما كانوا يعملون.
It is not possible for you to comprehend what refreshment of the eyes is hidden from you, just reward for your constructive actions. 32:17. As for those who only create unrest and unevenness in societies in this world and do not do anything constructive for nourishment of humanity, they perish away after death, their growth stops. This is what is meant by Jahim, to waste away.
فذوقوا بما نسيتم لقاء يومكم هذا إنا نسيناكم وذوقوا عذاب الخلد بما كنتم تعملون.
On the day of your death, we just forget about you and have nothing to do with you anymore, just as you had forgotten that a day will arrive when your growth will stop because of debit balance in your account of action. 32:14. For thinking people, this is a very grievous punishment. I conclude from this discussion that the Quran exhorts us to improve our individual and collective life in such a way that it reflects Jannat as described by it. And, we must ensure that we do not get drawn into Jahim as described by it on account of our evil deeds. Whichever people work according to divine laws, succeed in achieving results promised as a result of their actions. These results can be seen. This reassures the people that they are in fact working in congruity with the laws of Allah, and these laws do, in fact, produce result as guaranteed. If a people are sure that they are on the right path but their efforts produce no results, it is a sure indicator that either they are not, in fact, on the right path although they think they are, or the laws of Allah cannot be relied upon to produce guaranteed results. The Quran rejects the latter thought. Therefore it is for the people to determine where they have gone wrong in understanding divine laws. The laws of accountability are, therefore, a great help for the people who can check at each stage whether their comprehension of divine value system is correct.
إن الذين آمنوا والذين هدوا والصابئين والنصارى والمجوس والذين أشركوا إن الله يفصل بينهم يوم القيامة إن الله على كل شيء شهيد.
Those who believe and those who are Jews and Sabaeans and the Christians and the Magians and the polytheists. Surely, Allah will decide between them at the time of accountability. Surely, Allah properly supervises over all. 22:17. The accountability is here and now, as well as in the hereafter. At least, so far as here and now is concerned, it is quite clear as to which of the people mentioned above are close to desirable way of life. Laws of nature take time to produce results.
ولا تهنوا ولا تحزنوا وأنتم الأعلون إن كنتم مؤمنين.
When you are working in congruity with Allah's laws, do not get upset or be anxious when you do not see results quickly. You are bound to obtain the upper hand. 3:139. But if you keep your options open with regard to divine value system and working accordance with it when it is to your advantage and reject it when you do not seem to be personally benefiting, or you may proclaim that you are a firm believer but not act according to them at all, then you will be amongst the lowest of the low.
إن المنافقين في الدرك الأسفل من النار ولن تجد لهم نصيرا.
Surely, those who do not put their faith in divine values but keep their options open working only in self-interest, will be in the lowest depth of the fire. You will find that nobody can help them. 145. Logically, therefore, it can be concluded that those who have an upper hand are closer to divine value system than those who are the lowest of the low. The history of rise and of nations demonstrates the truth of this conclusion. The Babylonians, Israelis, Romans, Muslims, the Anglo-Saxons, and in these time, the Americans have been superpowers when they were on a higher pedestal of moral values and were working not only for their own benefit but making the forces of nature work for the benefit of humanity at large. They were reduced in their status in the comedy of nations when they let go of their higher moral value systems. They, no longer, had the upper hand. This law has been applicable in the past, is applicable now, and will continue to be applicable for all times to come. Let the superpowers beware.
وما خلقنا السماء والأرض وما بينهما لاعبين.
We have not created this universe for sport. There is a definite purpose to it. 21:16. And the purpose is.
بل نقذف بالحق على الباطل فيدمغه فإذا هو زاهق ولكم الويل مما تصفون.
There is a constant conflict between the constructive forces of truth, haq, and the destructive forces of falsehood, battle. The constructive forces of truth keep knocking out the destructive forces of falsehood. Falsehood is defected. It disappears. It is a great pity that you do not comprehend this but keep thinking of universe your own way. 21:18. But this is not the end of the road for people who are hurled into the lowest of the low, provided they are prepared to help themselves. Once they are reduced in status, fiery nations with imperialist design pounce upon them to exploit their weakness for their own benefit. This exploitation should rekindle in these down-and-out nations a desire to get out of their lethargy and start a new life, full of energy and desire for benefiting mankind. If they avail of this chance, they emerge once again as nations with a higher status.
وحرام على قرية أهلكناها أنهم لا يرجعون حتى إذا فتحت يأجوج ومأجوج وهم من كل حدب ينسلون.
For those nations once dead, it becomes impossible to come to life again until Gog and Magog, fiery imperialist powers, invade the weaker powers from all directions, and this exploitation rekindles struggle for life and power once again. 21:95-96. So far, we have seen that according to the Quran, individuals who adopt the divine value system as their way of life, become bigger human beings, their personalities develop and they graduate into a higher state of life after they die. Communities and states which have the Quran to guide their collective lives, become leaders of the world, live in peace and plenty and help and guide humanity live the same way, providing the less developed nations with nourishment to enable them to stand on their feet. Individuals who do neither believe in divine value system nor act according to it but insist on a way of life in which their own immediate good is preferred to promotion of a just and equitable society, become lesser men. Their personalities do not develop and they do not graduate into a higher way of life at death, they perish, their growth having stopped. Communities and states which prefer to live without any value system as a guide, live a miserable life. They get left behind in the race of life until they perish away in history, sometimes even forgets them completely. This is a simple enough statement, not involving too much philosophy. However, the Quran goes a step further and describes in concrete terms the society which is established visibly as a result of actions of both these parties. The good way of life is called Jannat, paradise, and the bad way of life is called Jahim, stagnation, or Jahannam, hell. The Quran describes these societies as established by humans themselves, by dint of their own good or bad deeds, in great detail, and I shall summarize only a few of their important characteristics. Before I do that, let me reiterate that the Quran does not describe the state of life in the hereafter at all. It only alludes to it in a few places, states categorically that it will be better than what they have seen in this world, and the more curious ones that it cannot be understood by you in real terms but only by comparing it to the Jannat you have made in this life by dint of your own effort. First, the Jannat.
للمحسنين إن الذين قالوا ربنا الله ثم استقاموا فلا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنين.
Surely, those who say our Lord is Allah, then continue on the right way, they will not be afraid of anything nor will they have any anxiety for the future. 46:13. They would have conquered nature and would be living in harmony with the laws of nature. Therefore, they will have no fear. Their own constructive actions and guarantee provided by their society against all exigencies of life will earn them a life in which they have no anxiety.
ومغفرة ورزق كريم.
Their income will be hard-earned with which they enjoy an honorable economic life. 8:4.
إن الأبرار لفي نعيم.
Such constructive people will be in great comfort. 82:13. This comfort will continue as long as they and their society remain on course.
كلا إن كتاب الأبرار لفي عليين.
They will be enjoying a high status. 83:18.
على الأرائك ينظرون تعرف في وجوههم نضرة النعيم يسقون من رحيق مختوم ختامه مسك وفي ذلك فليتنافس المتنافسون ومزاجه من تسنيم عينا يشرب بها المقربون.
Well set on places from where they will be in control. You will be able to see from their fresh appearances that they are enjoying a life of comfort. They are given to drink of a pure drink, sealed. The sealing of it is with musk. And, for that let the aspirers aspire. This water comes from fountain on high, a fountain from which drink only those who have achieved nearness to God by their constructive actions. 83:23-28.
وجوه يومئذ ناعمة لسعيها راضية في جنة عالية لا تسمع فيها لاغية فيها عين جارية فيها سرر مرفوعة وأكواب موضوعة ونمارق مصفوفة وزرابي مبثوثة. Their faces in their lives will be happy. They will be well satisfied with the compensation for their hard, constructive work. They will be in lofty gardens wherein you will hear no vain talk, therein will be fountains flowing. Their thrones will be high with drinking cups ready for them to be served. And, cushions set in row and carpets spread out. 88:8-16. Basic needs like food, clothing, accommodation will be guaranteed. إن لك لا تجوع فيها ولا تعر وأنك لا تظمأ فيها ولا تضحى.
In it you will never go hungry or naked. You will never go thirsty and will never expose to the sun's heat. 2118-119. And the basic needs comfortable way of life.
حدائق وأعنابا وكواعب أترابا وكأسا دهاقا لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا كذابا جزاء من ربك عطاء حسابا.
Therein will be gardens and vineyards, drinks with no intoxicating effect, non-alcoholic beer. And pure cups, drinks with nourishing rather than intoxicating effect. They will not hear vain words or lying. 78:32-36. Sounds familiar when you travel to the developed West, does it? I hope so. The Quran goes on and on to draw a beautiful picture of the way of life a good people ought to work hard and constructively to achieve in this life. Those who do not take up this challenge and spend their lives not in acquiring technology to conquer nature for the benefit of humanity but in the observance of meaningless rituals inherited from their forefathers, are condemned to a hellish life, a summary of which I will give in the next paragraph. Like Jannat, paradise, the Quran devotes a large part of it to describe in great detail the Jahannam, hell, the humans create for themselves in this world as a result of their inaction or unproductive actions. I shall give only a brief summary. The most frequent and a highly descriptive term Quran uses for Jahannam is al-nar, fire, a society where human endeavors produce no beneficial results, or end up in smoke. The non-beneficial results are plenty.
ومن أعرض عن ذكري فإن له معيشة ضنكا ونحشره يوم القيامة أعمى.
Their economy will be straitened. 21-24. They will not have enough to live on and hence be dependent upon others for their basic needs.
وإن الفجار لفي جحيم.
Their growth will be stunted so that they will be unable to graduate to the next, higher phase of life. 82-14. As a result of their unproductive actions, they would have created unevenness in society. People would, therefore, not cooperate in any good ventures that leaders might contemplate.
كلا إن كتاب الفجار لفي سجين.
They will be as if in a prison, not in a position to take any action because they are not free. 83-7. The state of their society will be such that actions will not produce results.
الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيي.
He will enter in such a state where endeavors are not suitably rewarded and hence end up in smoke. He will not die so that he does not escape this ignominious punishment. And, although he will be breathing, will not be counted among the vibrant living. 87-12-13. Such are dead re-condemned to live the misery.
وجوه يومئذ خاشعة عاملة ناصبة تصلى نارا حامية تسقى من عين آنية ليس لهم طعام إلا من ضريع لا يسمن ولا يغني من جوع.
Their faces will be downcast. They will be laboring and toiling but only getting tired in the process because they will not get adequate compensation for their work. Their efforts will only take them nearer to the fire of destruction. Their water will be from a hot boiling fountain. They will eat of what others have thrown away as unfit for themselves to eat. Such good will not properly nourishes them but will not take away from their hunger. 88-2-7. The leaders, who have accumulated power and wealth by exploiting the weak, will be in a state of shock.
قلوب يومئذ واجفة أبصارها خاشعة يقولون أئنا لمردودون في الحافرة.
Their hearts will be palpitating on account of anxiety. Their eyes will be downcast on account of shame. They will not believe that they have been reduced to the same state as they were in before they started their exploitation. They will be like bones without marrow. 79-8-10. Occasionally, they will make half-hearted efforts to change their state of life. But their efforts will come to naught because they were not sincere in their efforts.
إن الذين كفروا بآياتنا سوف نصليهم نارا كلما نضجت جلودهم بدلناهم جلودا غيرها ليذوقوا العذاب إن الله كان عزيزا حكيما.
Their evil actions bring them to such a pass where their efforts will end up in smoke. They will try to put up a fight but will be crushed. They will try again after re-equipping themselves. But they will again face destruction. 456. Their life will be a long state of wretchedness and misery.
في سموم وحميم وظل من يحموم لا بارد ولا كريم.
In hot winds and boiling water and shadows of black smoke, neither cool nor refreshing. 56-42-44.
لآكلون من شجر من زقوم فمالئون منها البطون فشاربون عليه من الحميم فشاربون شرب الهيم.
Eat of the tree zakum, a little forest plant with a nasty smell, and fill your bellies with it and drink after it of boiling water and drink as drinks the thirsty camel. 56-52-55. Sounds familiars, does it not when you travel in much of the Muslim world today? Compare this to the life of Jannat. As described earlier, and comprehend the difference between the standards of life of the developed world and the third world. I have given only a brief summary of the type of living conditions that are created by bad people of their own free will. The Quran gives many more details. Conclusion. Let me conclude. A lot of sound planning and hard, consistent work has gone on to create this universe. Forces of manner-determined nature work under strict discipline, in a predictable for them, to run the universal machinery in smooth way. An inexhaustible treasure of provisions has been spread about the universe to sustain comfortable life for generations to come. This is God's, or if you prefer, nature's free gift to man. It would be a great pity if humanity did not appreciate this gift. It would be in its personal interest if it would harness its energies in a constructive manner and in harmony as mankind. It should exploit these bounties and make use of them to set up peaceful and prosperous living. To shun the joys of this world, as some philosophies would have us do, would be tantamount to denying ourselves the pleasure so readily available. These pleasures could be enjoyed to their maximum extent only if humanity decided to proceed about it as one entity. Humans have been given a free choice. They can live together as one family, sharing the comforts and hardships they create for themselves. Or individuals, tribes, nations or groups of nations could work in their best selfish interest only to ensure peace and prosperity for themselves, even though, at times, it may be at a cost to others. Understandably, such course of action might create conflicts. A study of history of civilization shows that humanity has been trying to live in peace as a community throughout the ages. Wise people have been offering their advice on adoption of certain rules for individual and collective life to ensure elimination of conflicts. In the process, mankind has learnt through centuries of war and peace. Amongst the wise men mentioned above, there have been many in most parts of the civilized world who have proclaimed that they are messengers of God. Many people do not feel that any interference from the outside is called for when formulating value systems for human conduct. While they are welcome to their views, Islam contributes to that concept where a broad, permanent value system is given by God rather than evolved by human intellect. Islam encourages humanity to live by the law. They are perfectly at liberty to choose the law they wish to live by. Such laws should be clearly defined and publicly announced so that other participants in the game of life are aware of what they are dealing with. Islam has the highest respect for all wise people, whether messengers of God or otherwise, who have contributed their thoughts for framing a philosophy of life. While contributing its own humble bit in this pool of knowledge, it invites people of different philosophies to come together on a minimum common program in the first instance. As they work together at peace with each other, they are likely to learn from each other and hopefully enlarge the common ground among themselves. This is the spirit in which this book has offered Islamic permanent values in various fields of individual and collective life. Two things are immediately noticeable in this list of permanent values. One is that it is a very short list. For a way of life which claims to be operative for all times to come, it has quite appropriately very few details to offer. Surely, this is how it should be. The universe is constantly changing. Scientific discoveries bring about changes in lifestyle every so often. Humanity must respond with new rules of the game of changing times. A touch of the permanence is necessary to bring about and maintain a minimum common program of action by entire humanity on a long-term basis. Within a permanent structure, details will differ from place to place and time to time. Permanence, provided restricted to minimum, is also helpful in promoting stability in law. An example might help. The Quran has prescribed the death penalty for a proven, deliberate murder, for all times to come. People who do not believe in permanent values have been varying in their response to this crime. The death penalty has been imposed on occasions, eliminated at other times and then reimposed after some thought and experience. So long as it is done in good faith, it is understandable because humans learn from experience. God offers to help. He suggests that he be trusted to make a good decision for his people. It will help lend stability to law. The Quran does claim that after a lot of trial and error, humanity will come round to the idea of a death penalty for a proven, deliberate murder. Trial and error is, perhaps, an exercise in futility when a feasible alternative is available. In this short list of permanent values, it stands out that there are relatively large number of values governing family life. This would appear to be so because God lays great stress on harmony in homes and also feels that changes in lifestyles over centuries will make relatively little impact on home life. History has proved this premise to be correct. Harmony or lack thereof in home lives has led to rise and fall of nations in the past. As at today, the West with its mastery of science, technology and good values in many spheres of life, appears to be vulnerable on the home front. God has offered no sex outside marriage as a permanent value. Non-enforcement of this innocuous-looking value is resulting in major evils in society. Non-payment of attention to it will surely result in major disasters in the future. The second noticeable thing about this list is the discovery that humanity has a lot many values in common. I must have missed out a few values mentioned in the Quran, but let me assure you they will not be too many. Notice how many of these agree with proclaimed value systems of other religions, wise men, or philosophical schools of thought. If all schools of thought were to draw up a list of their value systems, humanity might discover that they have little to fight about. Of course, there are differences. These should be resolved in a peaceful, rational manner. Of course, each ideology, including Islam, claims that theirs is the best value system of them all. Remaining within an agreed common framework, let each ideology live according to its own wish and let others live according to theirs. History of civilization so far indicates that man is quite capable of learning from each other. Take slavery as an example. Nations and countries have a long history of denial of freedom and dignity to man. Some very wise people in the past have termed slavery as an essential ingredient of society. It has brutally been practiced in some very highly developed countries in the recent past. But it is nearly universally recognized as an evil in modern times. Surely, this is a tribute to humanity, learning from experience. The main aim of this book is to suggest to the Muslim world that making Islamic laws in modern world is possible. The whole Muslim world believes in one Quran. It is possible to draw up a list of limits of Allah. This foundation would serve as the common platform on which each Muslim country would build a structure suitable for them. To draw up commons programs, applicable to all Muslim countries, they already have very well-established old institution, Hajj. It would serve them well if they made use of this. It would promote unity amongst the Muslim countries because they have an agreed-upon limits of Allah as their common foundation. Within each Muslim country, it is imperative for it to agree on a method of legislation. I have suggested one method in this book. Unity of Muslim countries must lead to unity of the world. Most ideologies, including Islam, have been advocating this since the advent of civilization. In modern times, all countries, developed and underdeveloped alike, have realized that peace and prosperity on earth are only possible when all countries live in accordance with an agreed-upon set rules. Islam has a very fine value system to offer. Let the Muslims define it in a rational way and present it in the Forum of United Nations. But the Muslims have to agree among themselves in the first instance. This book is humble contribution with that aim in view.